What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Tomatolito Show, and let's jump right in. We're less than 24 hours away from the first UFC card of 2020, and it's going to be a you pick 'em type of fight between Max Holloway, headlining event. Obviously, the headlining fight of the event is going to be Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. One of the unique things about this is that as far as the United States is concerned, it's going to be broadcasted on mainstream TV, being by way of ABC Network. If you don't have cable TV or those main channels, you could always catch it on ESPN Plus. If you're outside of the United States and you don't have the ABC channel offered to you, and you have the app, that's a way to watch it. If not, hey, the go-to is always check your local listings. I'm sure if you have different channels around the world, globally, it should be aired because it's going to attract ratings. It's going to attract viewership. So one of the local channels, regardless of where you're at, I'm sure is going to be airing this fight. It's also going to be somewhat early. It's not the typical prime time type of fight, or the 8 o'clock in the evening, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the evening type of fight. This is the main card set to start at 3 p.m. Eastern time as far as the United States is concerned. So check your local listings and the time differential there. This should be a good one. Why is this fight going to be so good? The card is decent, right? The card from top to bottom has decent opposition, decent names. You got Joaquin Buckley, who's going to be back since his video game style ending and his viral type ending, in which he does that spinning kick and finishes his opponent. So he's going to be on the card. Another long-awaited fight is between Matt Brown and Carlos Condit. That fight's been scheduled and it's fallen through, and you name it. It's been several years in the making. They're both a little bit past their prime or on the latter stages of their careers, but it's pretty cool that it's finally going to happen. That should be another good fight there. And slightly, maybe years ago, it would have been a super fast-paced, highly contested match. Both of them are game fighters. Both of them have great track records and great history in the sport of MMA. But now they're a little bit slower. They're a little bit slower at their at putting their attacks together, their combos. They're going to be more so outbursts in that. And if they decide to stay on their feet, if they go to the ground, then I think Brown would probably have the advantage there. Nonetheless, that should be a fun fight, right? Just the nostalgia behind it, because it's been set to take place several times in the past, and it's finally coming to fruition. Both fighters made weight earlier, and it's going to be good. And then the main event, right? The main event's the exciting part. For it to be the first card of 2021, or the first headlining event and the headlining fight to kick off 2021 for the UFC, you couldn't ask for anything better. Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. This is a you pick 'em type of fight, and it doesn't matter who you put your money behind, who you bank on. You can't go wrong on this type of fight. It's going to be entertaining. We preview these fighters. We know Max Holloway, both of them have similar layoffs. Both of them are coming off nearly a 6-month, if not just around that 6-month mark. They both fought in last July of 2020. Max Holloway, of course, coming off a loss to Volkanovski, trying to regain his title back. A lot of people, including the press and a lot of commentary, a lot of sports channels, they thought Max Holloway did enough, including myself, thinking that Max Holloway did enough to regain his title that night, including dropping Volkanovski. I believe he dropped him in the first and the second round. Different style fight, different type of fight. Holloway expected the attack and the game plan that Volkanovski put together on their first fight and back in December of 19, in which Holloway lost the title. And Holloway had answers for that style of attack, and including dropping Volkanovski a couple times during that fight. Everybody thought that, or at least a large portion, I'm not going to say everybody, obviously not everybody, because the judges saw it for Volkanovski and he retained the title, but a lot of people, a large portion of fans, press, you name it, they saw Holloway having done enough that night in July to have regained his title. It wasn't the case. Volkanovski got the decision and also his first defense of that title, cementing himself as the champ now. So we haven't seen Holloway since July. As far as Calvin Kattar, he also fought in July, and he's coming off a win against Dan Ige. So one fighter, Holloway, coming off a loss, Kattar coming off a win. Nonetheless, you got to expect Holloway to be not only level-headed, his spirits have to be up because of that performance. And a lot of people seeing that he won, including him. Fighters often say, you know when you lose. You feel it. It's internal. Like, you feel it. You know that you got bested that night. And fighters know. They mentally, they're in a different place when they know that they performed. They left it all out there. They did enough to win, and it came down to the judges. So it's a different type of peace that they find with themselves, having performed well, versus knowing that you had it and somebody took it from you. And that's kind of the feeling. Nonetheless, he's always super level-headed and well-spoken, very optimistic, to where he's like, hey, I'm not going to hold any grudges. You just keep on going, right? The Blessed Express keeps on moving forward. That's the exciting part about this. The fact that both of these guys have high spirits. They believe in themselves. They believe in what they bring to the table. And they both are in the belief of being able to be the next top dog. For Holloway, regaining that title and running the division again. For Kattar, finding his way to the peak and conquering this division. Calvin Kattar, if we talk about him, his stock is at an all-time high right now. He's gone from a prospect to a legit contender to a who's who in the division, and he's right there. If he secures this fight, he's right there in line for a title shot. Either one fight away or immediately after this fight, we would see him in the second part of the year, possibly getting that title shot, or even a summer showdown with Volkanovski or Ortega. That seems to be the fight that's looming for Volkanovski. Ortega, either set for mid to late February, or might even be moved to March on a card that's being planned for the Stipe and Ngannou rematch. And this would be the co-main event, Ortega Volkanovski. Let's jump right back into this. Max Holloway, 21 overall MMA record, 21-6. Obviously representing Hawaii. 5'11", 146 pounds as he weighed in today. 69-inch reach, 42-inch leg reach. As far as Calvin Kattar, overall MMA record stands at 22-4, so he has one more victory than what Holloway has. Both of them have similar records, right? Overall, he's fought 26 times. Holloway has fought 27 times professionally. So very similar records. 22-4 for Calvin Kattar, out of Boston, 5'11", 146 pounds as he weighed in earlier today as well. So both came in at same weight. He has a 3-inch reach advantage over Max. And as far as leg reach goes, he loses a couple inches by way of leg reach. He has 40 inches to as far as his leg reach goes, and 72 inches as far as his arm reach. So very evenly matched fight. Very, very, very good matchmaking as far as I can see. As far as this fight goes, I mean, it's as even. It's a you pick 'em type of fight, like I said. Let's look at the scenarios. These are the scenarios playing around in my head. As far as a highly contested, fast-paced type of fight, to where it's a back and forth through and through, is what I'm envisioning this fight going like. If it becomes a decision win for Calvin Kattar, his stock is at a high right now. If it's a decision win for him and in a highly contested match, you can bet that he's going to be either one fight away from a title shot, or his very next fight would be a title shot. Let's look at the other side. If Max Holloway ends up coming out with the decision, with his hand raised by way of decision in a highly back and forth, fast-paced type of fight, then you know that he's back. Everybody's going to be right on that Blessed Express, right on the hype train, and wanting to see him back into title contention. Same scenario presents itself for Max Holloway. If he stops Calvin Kattar, even more so, the hype's going to be behind, and the spirit, the hype, the emotion is going to be behind, and the momentum behind Max Holloway into getting him into another title shot. If Calvin Kattar stops Max Holloway, the conversations will begin for Max Holloway. You know the comments are going to start coming out as to maybe his career should start dwindling down. Maybe he should start considering hanging him up in the near future. And for Calvin Kattar, his stock is going to completely skyrocket. And we'll see him in a title shot, hands down. There's no more question if he stops Max Holloway, whether he's a fight away. The next fight will be a title shot for him. I don't see any other way for Calvin Kattar for his career to go if he stops Max Holloway. Now, let's talk about if we see a sleeper of a fight. It happens when these fighters are so evenly matched and the hype is behind them, and it's bound to be such an exciting type of fight, and everything, the writing's on the wall that it's gonna be one of those fight of the year type contenders, and then we end up getting snubbed, right? We saw it with Adesanya, Romero, to recent memory. That's the one that comes to mind. We saw it with, who was it? Derek Lewis. He was involved in a fight as well. I can't think of the other fighter's name. Good fighter as well. They end up basically not engaging. Oh, it was Ngannou, wasn't it? Well, Derek Lewis and Ngannou that were not engaging. I'll confirm that for you. If we get that type of fight and Calvin Kattar gets the decision, his stock is not taking a single hit. His stock stays the same. This is the highest level competition, the biggest name that he's competed against to date. And if he gets his hand raised, even if it's a sleeper of a fight, he does his job. His stock, if anything, rises, but it's definitely not going to take a hit, win, lose, or draw in this fight. If Holloway gets a decision like that, he does his job. He's back on his horse. He's moving forward. He was able to mitigate the damage on behalf of Calvin Kattar and the attacks. He did his job. Good win for Max Holloway. Continues on. You could bet that we'll see him in another fight to get him back into title contention. The storyline is there for Max Holloway to be able to succeed in this fight. And depending on what happens between Volkanovski and Ortega, if that fight does materialize between Ortega and Volkanovski, chances are that if Max puts on an amazing performance or stops Kattar, we'll see him in a third fight. We'll see him in the octagon against Volkanovski should he be victorious against Ortega. But if Ortega takes the title from Volkanovski, imagine the storyline. A huge rematch fight for the title. Of course they're going to sign up that fight, Holloway and Ortega, in a rematch. This time, the tables have turned. Holloway would walk in as a contender, as the challenger, and Ortega would be the one with the title. So the tables would turn in that scenario. Calvin Kattar, coming off of a massive performance by stopping Holloway, should he do that? Or if he comes out with a good decision win on a highly contested, just bloodfest of a match that I see this thing turning into, Calvin Kattar walks away. It doesn't matter who he faces, but he'll be a great seller for a Volkanovski match or Ortega, whoever comes out victorious on that. That fight's still not finalized. That's what the talks are, that fight's going to happen between Volkanovski and Ortega, but it's not finalized yet. So that's why I'm a little hesitant on that one, depending on who the next opponent would be. But as of right now, just imagine the storyline's there for Max and Ortega to get back in there, or for him to go at it, being that the second win that Volkanovski holds over Holloway and his retention of the title was highly questionable by most. So that fight, I was just looking right here. My attention went away a little bit. I was looking at the Ngannou. It was Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou, in which it was an odd fight, right? I think people were even describing it as a bizarre type of fight in which neither guy was willing to engage. Dana White came up being so critical. And we've seen it time and time again. That fight was the heaviest punchers, big bodies. Everybody's expecting a huge knockout victory by either party. And everybody just curious as to see who's going to land that. And they both hesitated. They were both hesitant during the fight. They were both wary. And you had that nervous energy in the octagon. And nothing happened, and it ends up going to decision. So it's happened before, right? I just don't see it happening here. The writing's not on the wall for this one to play out like that. Both of them are fast paced. Both of them put very good combinations together. If anything, I see Calvin Kattar walking away with the speed category. I think he's the faster of the two fighters. I think Holloway has a better leg game. I think Kattar probably challenges, gives a run for Holloway's boxing. As far as that's concerned, I think Kattar's also the better boxer of the two. I think combining and moving the leg to the upper to lower type attack, I think Holloway's the better one of the two, the more experienced, more rounds, and the heart. I think the heart, as far as battle tested goes between these two fighters, you can't even compare them. I think Max Holloway has been battle tested, and he's shown time and time again that he's got that warrior heart and that chin as well. And I think this will be an awesome test for Calvin Kattar. Should he come out victorious out of this fight? Listen, his stock's gonna completely skyrocket after tomorrow. If Holloway ends up coming out with anything but a dud of a fight, which he's not, his track record doesn't have him in slow type boring fights. If he comes out and just smokes, just train wrecks Calvin Kattar, you bet that he's going to be in line. Who knows? The UFC will lose their mind. They'll probably even create an interim title or something like they do often, just to keep them enthused and keep the fans enthused. But I'm not going to make a prediction as to who takes it. I want a good fight, and there's nothing that tells me that it shouldn't be anything but. This is going to be an exciting fight, a good back and forth, and may the best man win. So I'll leave you guys with that. Tune into it. Check your local listings to see where you catch it. And remember, it's not going to be a late night fight. It's going to be an early show on Saturday evening for us here in the United States. It'll be about 3 o'clock when the main card starts. So keep an eye on that. It's not your typical UFC main event or primetime style event. So I'll leave you guys with that. Welcome to 2021. What a way to kick off the UFC schedule, right? I'll talk to you all soon. Take care of yourselves.